In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve problems with dark shadows and bright highlights spoiling your scenic shots. A sunny winter's day is a great time for photographing cities with your Canon DSLR, but problems arise when the whole scene isn't evenly lit. This is often the case during winter when the sun is low in the sky, leaving some streets and buildings in shadow for most of the day. Faced with a high contrast scene in these conditions, it can be impossible to capture an image that retains detail both in the areas that are in shadow and those lit by the sunshine. Thankfully, your Canon camera is equipped with a choice of built-in solutions to help you in high contrast scenes like this. First up is the Auto Lighting Optimizer, or ALO, a feature that is available on all current Canon cameras. ALO uses selective tone curve adjustments to tweak the shadows and highlights. Try setting your camera to the high ALO setting and take a shot, but you may find the result a little too subtle. So instead, we'd recommend using the HDR mode, currently available on all Pro and Enthusiast Canon DSLRs. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range, and in this mode, by pressing the shutter button once, your Canon automatically takes 3 different exposures: standard, underexposed and overexposed. It then merges them in camera, producing a JPEG with a better range of tones, with detail in the mid-tones, highlights and shadows. You are also able to fine-tune the HDR mode settings in your camera's menu. With HDR mode enabled, first set the dynamic range to select the difference in exposure. Today we've used plus and minus 3 stops of exposure, as there's a big difference between the brighter and darker areas in our scene. If you want a creative look, you can select the HDR effect from Natural and 4 Art effects: Standard, Vivid, Bold and Embossed. We stick with Natural for the most realistic final image though. Under Continuous HDR, set to every shot, so you don't need to keep switching it on again. Now enable Auto Image Align, which is surprisingly good at lining up the 3 original images, even when shooting handheld. Finally, under Save Source Images, choose All Images. This means, when shooting in the raw image quality on advanced cameras like the 5D Mark III, your camera will save the 3 bracketed exposures. Helpful if you want to merge them into an HDR image later using Photoshop. On cameras like the 70D and 60, you need to shoot in JPEG image quality before you can enable the HDR mode, and only the merged HDR image will be saved, not the 3 images used to produce the HDR image. Now, with our HDR mode set up correctly, there are a couple of tips to bear in mind when shooting. Use a tripod to keep the camera steady. This will make it easier for your camera to align the 3 exposures accurately for your merged HDR image. Finally, take some time to experiment. As with all in-camera processing, the first settings you choose won't necessarily be right. So following our tips will help you get better results next time you're faced with a high contrast scene.